Alright, so today I wanted to talk about something I've been thinking about doing for a good while, and this is going to be my ending to Berserk. Just a heads up, this will have a lot of spoilers, so do not watch it, do not recommend watching it until you have been fully caught up with the manga, comic, and all that from there. Just because it's really good, and it's very, very unique story, so I would not recommend having it spoiled by someone or anything like that, especially in the spoiled in such a way. So I definitely recommend watching that before proceeding. But either way, I think it was 1 or 2 years ago. Time's been moving pretty quickly. 1 or 2 years ago, the author of Berserk passed away, which is pretty tragic. One, the fact that he passed away. Two, kind of other reason why, of course, is for what it means for his work. He's been working on Berserk probably for upwards, I think, of 25, 30 years, roughly. He's been doing quite a lot, basically. It is a long story, essentially, from here. I think it started, I want to say, like 92. I don't actually remember. It's going on till now. But I think pretty sure he passed away in 2021. So the story's been going on this long, and it is very long, very detailed and everything. And so this kind of came to a question, of course, once he passed away of, were we ever going to get an ending? Because I've reread the story twice, maybe 3 times at this point. The most recently was about a year ago. I went through it a year ago. But essentially, now the question is, what's going to happen? We have this epic story with these amazing characters and this fantastic, incredibly horrific and wonderful and crazy world. What's going to happen now? So I decided, just as an exercise, also to kind of get some closure for myself, I wanted to go through and figure out how I would end it. So the first question off the bat is, my ending is not going to be the ending of the author. Let me get his actual, Kentaro Miura. I'm definitely butchering that. Author. So this ending is going to be mine, not his. It is not going to be what he came up with. He probably would have come up with something much better. But either way, this is my ending. Me and him have different styles, different preferences, so that is definitely going to influence my judgment for it. It has been a little while since I've read it recently. I came through most of this a while back, and I'm kind of revisiting it to finalize the last of the details out, and also get something out. But so I definitely will have missed something. There's definitely been a number of YouTube videos I've looked at. I've thought about watching, which were hours long, which go deep into the lore of Berserk and everything. And I may watch through those and then come back and revisit and edit and make appropriate changes to this ending that I'm writing for it. But originally I just wanted to make sure that this was at least my thoughts. I wanted to make sure that my thoughts were getting put down and that I wasn't stealing anything from anyone else, or they weren't influencing it or anything like that. So I wanted to get my thoughts and basically take it from where the story left off when the author passed up to the ending. And so that I would say all out the gate, there is going to be some aspect of me telling the story that how I want it to end, and that I don't want it to end tragically. I'm pretty sure the author Miura, hey, I mean to make that an A. I'm pretty sure he mentioned that it wouldn't be a sad ending for the story, and so I'm kind of taking with that. But either way, that's the ending I'm going for, because I just think that Guts deserves a satisfying ending, and I don't think it would be that. It would just really sour everything for the story and all that Guts has sacrificed and gone through, to have it just be like, well, sucks to suck. Griffith's super powerful and a god at this point, so bazap, you're dead. Moving on to some weird utopian horror show. So that is what it's kind of going into, so I wanted to go through it. So basically what I'm going to be doing is taking the story from they're all at Elf Island. And essentially they were traveling here. I'm trying to remember exactly where it's at. It's been a while, so But they were basically staying there and kind of training. They kind of had sailed there and kind of followed, I think, visions to have to ask the Elf King something. It's not quite as important for this one, but either way, the important thing is that they're there. Guts has the Berserker's armor, and they're kind of worked together as a team. Casca has been restored. Oh, that's right, they were restoring Casca. Duh. Let's see. Fixed. Casca has been fixed. I guess I probably should have put restored. That seems a little more better. Restored to her original mind and healed and everything from the damage and everything Griffith has done. Guts, she still has some issues with Guts. And probably will for a little bit, and that's fine. But that is kind of where the story is, and they're kind of at a good, happy spot. So what I'm going to be doing is kind of taking and kind of ignoring the most recent chapter, I believe, that came out. It was written by the assistants to the author, which, again, nothing against them. It's just I came up with this before that chapter came out, and as I'm not quite sure how much of it is the original versus not, so I just don't quite know how to factor it in, and I kind of already came up with my ideas before that chapter came out. So I may adapt it at some point, but right now I'm going to kind of take some elements of that and then kind of also ignore a decent bit else. And you'll kind of see why and what comes through. So the way I imagine the story developing at this point, let me see, I'm going to have to, maybe I'll zoom out a little bit because I need a little bit more space. Let me get that focused in. So yeah, it's got 3 different elements. So we've kind of got different parties. We got 1, we got 2, and then we get 3 over here. So, 1 over here is going to be Guts, and we're going to team him up with Casca from here. And so, and then 2, that's going to be kind of divided with, what's his name? Farnese, the weird Catholic lady, and then Serpico, which is a great name. And that's kind of 1. We got 2 over here, which is going to be Rickert and Silat was his name. I never actually couldn't remember his name, but he's the turban guy who worked for the Kushan Empire and then figured out what the Emperor of Kushan was doing, and that he was basically just a demon at this point. And then he kind of turned against the king and then was turned over as a betrayer, basically. So they're kind of teamed up and everything. And this is kind of team 2. We're going to kind of do some subdividers here. And team 3 is what's happening at Falconia. So this is kind of Griffith's. We're going to say Griffith. And then we're going to say Charlotte, because she's kind of the next point of view from here. So these are kind of the different parties and kind of teams from here. So what we're going to do is this part is I'm going to have these guys are headed to the Sand Village. So they were kind of already headed that way. I'm pretty sure where the story left off is basically they just left Falconia, because you can kind of see everything's actually not quite as perfect as it seems. And so they're headed to the Sand Village. They were getting attacked by I kind of wanted to call him Krishna, but I think that's not his name. The Hawks, Rakshas. Rakshas is one of the generals who was attacking them, so he was kind of waylaying them from there, but they managed to escape, and so basically this is them on the journey to this one. So basically, and I'm going to try and interweave all these stories together and kind of show you how they would cycle from chapter to chapter. They would kind of jump around a little bit, but just kind of get this out on paper. So they're headed on this journey to this place. And this would be really cool because we haven't really been to a desert place, I don't think, yet in the comics. So I was really looking forward to seeing something like that, and all I could think of was how awesome and articulate the demon scorpions are. There we go. Demon scorpions and apostle scorpions. I guess just to say apostles, not demon. Scorpions would look. They would look awesome. So basically what this journey is going to consist of is them kind of traveling, and at some of these points, the way I kind of measure it is there's a main concept, and then there's point A, B, and then there's a main idea, and then in between and here is where the details live. This is what's kind of fungible. This can be changed, this can be altered pretty easily, but without changing the main idea. So this is what kind of my outline is going to result a lot on. Now this is one because it doesn't wholly matter. It can and it can't. It just kind of depends on it. But basically this, for example, would be Rickert going to the Sand Village. That's A. And then B is them arriving at the Sand Village. And so there's the main idea is them getting to the Sand Village. That's kind of how this whole thing operates. Now, how they get there, it doesn't really matter. So they can go through this desert, that desert, the other desert. They could go by river, through the desert. They could go by underground. They could go by the air. Who knows how what, basically. But they're the important thing is they're headed there. They're going to be, what I'm imagining is them fighting through the, some, apostle demon scorpions, which would be really awesome to see how that looks and just how everything's detailed out for it. But essentially, let me see if there's any, but essentially at the end of the day, they will arrive at the Sand Village. And this is Silat's hometown. Essentially, this is where he was trying to restore his honor, and he's traveling with his people. They're teamed up with the former, I think, Grand Wizard, the Gandhi-looking fellow, the Wizard Gandhi-looking fellow who used to fight for the Emperor of Kushan. So it's great they got him because he was super powerful. So that was pretty handy. But essentially, they're headed towards the Sand Village, and that's kind of their adventure for the next start. So kind of the details from here is going to be kind of talking through what they're able to explore a bit more of the world. This is going to add an extra bit of knowledge. So probably what I'm going to have is at the Sand Village is going to be some sort of elder or something like that who's going to have some sort of vision or knowledge of what's going to be happening in the world. This could be of Griffith or Falconia or something along that line, but this will give them the extra bit of knowledge, and this works story-wise because essentially they're going to be separated from the other characters at this point. So it works really nicely because then they can, then it adds this sense of urgency for the story. So once this group has knowledge, if this group doesn't know anything, then there's this kind of like, oh crap, they got to tell each other. So it adds this really good dramatic element for the story from there. And then let me see. So what I'm going to have here, Guts and Casca. This is the part where it can get a little bit fungible. Again, we're getting the main idea. The main idea is that Guts is going to be headed towards a weapon. He's going to be going to a weapon. And that's kind of the main influence I used for it. The reason why I think he needs a weapon is, one, he's not powerful enough to kill Griffith. He knows that. And so what he's going to be doing is trying to find a way to kind of go from there, because they know that Griffith is never going to rest, and they have to stop him because they don't know what he's going to be up to. So they have to find some sort of weapon, essentially. So what they're going to do is they're going to split off, and they're going to head, and this is just this is where I thought would be cool to go. They're going to head to the Dwarven realm. So we've seen dwarves, I think, once or twice from here, but basically what we're going to see is the Berserk version of Moria, which would be awesome. So that's the other reason why I wanted to go there, because Berserk Moria would be incredible. So we haven't had too much, we've had some, but we haven't had as much underground, deep underground kind of storytelling and everything from there. So that's kind of what we're working for. And they're going to be heading, and of course it makes sense then, kind of with lore, with stereotypical dwarven lore, that the weapon would be dwarvish. What I'm thinking of doing, I'll reveal that, I'll talk about this weapon later, but essentially this is what these guys are going to be going. They're going to take with them the witch lady, who her name is Shirking. I always end up skipping past names in a lot of books and just kind of remembering the shape of the name. But even with comics, it gets a little bit worse just because I can remember people's faces and go, that person, and move on. But sure, I think they're going to have to team up together. Again, you might see, like, why are they splitting the party? I've kind of got a good explanation for it. One, they kind of have just different, they're at a good stopping point, so they can kind of reevaluate and say, like, why are we still traveling together? Kind of where are we headed to next? Guts, I don't think, needs to leave Shirky. And maybe they'll take Isidro with them potentially. I'm not quite sure. Maybe these two don't go with them. I think this is a little bit fungible. The reason why they would go with Guts is because she needs to make sure he doesn't lose control. But then maybe he takes this as a exercise. Be like, listen, me and Casca need to bond. You know, so kind of continue their love story basically. They need to bond, but maybe also she teaches Casca's wanting to learn how to pull Guts out of the Berserk state. So there's a few options for that from there. I kind of would like, and I'll show you why, I would like it if these people can stay here with these, because it'll make a little bit more sense down the road. This is kind of the crew that we're working with. Either Guts and Casca are kind of going here. When they're in the Dwarven realm, this is kind of going to be the cool part. I'm going to have them meet a dwarf. They would meet a dwarf. Looks like a bee. A dwarf who's going to be kind of like their guide or their person, their character. This is the character, the side character for this realm. So we're going to call him Gimli. We'll call him Glimly. No copyright infringement here. Glimly or whatever, it doesn't really matter what his name is, but basically he's going to be the Dwarven warrior who's going to team up with them. And what this element is going to work, they're going to go deep into the underground, basically. Into the underground of the world, which we haven't really gone so far deep to the underworld and into the dark blackness, basically, which is going to look really cool and give you all kinds of monsters, basically, to imagine up. From there, and so this is what it's going to work. We're probably going to, again, this kind of falls into the main idea is that he gets the weapon. How he gets the weapon, it's definitely a bit... There's definitely a bit of I don't think one is technically righter or wronger than the other. It's at this question I'm going to be so long as it's lore accurate, character accurate, and theme or tone accurate. So we're not going to start into a rom-com or anything like that, or romance arc or anything like that. Because this is Berserk. This is just not the story that we're telling. So long as it matches those three things. Actually, let me write those down. So long as it's lore accurate, tone, theme. I'll put theme in there, even though that kind of goes with lore. Accurate, and then character accurate. Accurate. These are kind of the three different things that if you're going to do a fan-made finish of, it needs to match these three things. Because again, it really just drives me no end when any sort of adaptation. Someone who's going to be doing an adaptation just usually starts off with, listen, I love this story so much that I just can't wait to change it into something completely unrecognizable. And you're like, I think you shouldn't be adapting stories anymore, or just write your own. And I think that's just how it should be. But again, no one's asked me yet, so. So we're heading to the underground, the dark blackness. Basically, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, obviously. And so what I'm kind of mirroring this off would be largely a Berserk version of Moria. I've kind of set that up here, and it largely and what I mean by that is in terms there's going to be some sort of darkness. There's going to be a bunch of goblin apostles that are going to be running around here. There's going to be differences. I'm going to have it so there is a remnants of dwarves. Survivors. Basically, there's going to be a bunch of dwarven survivors which are fighting against the goblin apostles. So these are kind of the ones who survived so far. This is kind of what they're going to be fighting against. There is an aspect where I don't know how I'm going to have to answer this, and we'll get to that, and I'll show you guys what the second is. My question is, what is going to be the source of the evil, basically, the evil and the apostles? So I've got a few options. And option one is that it is a random or not random general of Griffiths. That's kind of option. That's one option. Another option is that it's just a random monster, a random evil boss. Let's call it. kind of like the Balrog, basically. So we've got the Balrog. We're just going to call him Balrog. So this who is going to be the Balrog? So it could be this guy, it could be this one, random evil boss. Another option is it could be the God Hand. They could be serving either servant of the God Hand or some other element of it, basically. And this is kind of who the Balrog is, basically, but this is who we're going to be killing. So Guts and Casca, and the idea is that we're going to try and make Casca into her own character, or not her own character, but her own, kind of strengthen her up. Basically, you kind of can see through the past story where there's kind of been a question of how is it possible that anyone can actually keep up with Guts. That's kind of been the question of, you know, he's superhuman strength and absurdly powerful and everything. How can anyone keep up with him? And so that's what you have to worry about as a story, is that if with Guts being so powerful and his ascension, his power ascension, essentially, you know, going crazy up here from here, basically, because we have here in the beginning, swordsman just as a swordsman, and then him with Berserker's armor. You know, think of the power and strength difference between that, and literally everyone else is kind of right here. More or less. So you have a problem with this element of the side characters being Krillin. You know, they become useless after some time. Krillin, Yamcha, whatever you want to call it. I use the Dragon Ball Z example because that's usually the worst offender in my opinion, where they have so many characters that just kind of become useless basically after so long. But we're trying to work on giving Casca strength, and what I was planning on doing with this, so we've got Casca down here, and what we're going to have is, I'm imagining, is some sort of party split. So Guts is going to go one direction, and Casca is going to go the other direction, and what we're going to have is Casca is going to find the weapon, and then Guts is going to find the Balrog. Basically, this is going to be the split, and then they're going to fight a whole bunch, and it's going to be a super epic underground fight. The Balrog, I'm not really imagining what it would be. I don't have a best idea. It could be something quite like a Balrog. It could be something else. But essentially it's something super strong, insanely strong, but also really cunning in the darkness, basically. So maybe it's not so much as strong as it is cunning, and it just can kind of like a combination. Let's take Gollum. Since we're going with the Lord of the Rings, we're going to combine Gollum with the Balrog. We're going to have his cunning and litheness and kind of cowardness, and fight from there. They're going to fight, and then eventually Casca is going to come down with the dwarves, and they're going to fight the Balrog and help Guts, basically. The weapon itself, what I was imagining, there's a few different ways it can go. What I was imagining originally is some sort of ballista. The Berserker's armor is already dwarven made. So the ballista would be some sort of like giant back crossbow or something like that. And when I say back, I mean it would mount on his back. So we've got the spiky Berserker's armor. Here's that. Let's see that. Spiky. Alright, so this is the torso, and then the arm's going to go out like that. You get the idea, etc. So this is the Berserker's armor. It's super cool, super spiky. But what I was imagining is basically the crossbow kind of gets mounted on the back here, basically. Gets attached there, and then essentially it gets angled like that. And then at that point, then this kind of gives an answer as to what Casca is going to do. So what I'm imagining is Guts, as he's kind of almost going into the Berserker dog form, he kind of turns into basically it's kind of like a machine gun mounted back here for all intents and purposes, or the ballista weapon is mounted back here. So that's mounted back here, and then it kind of fires out, and then Casca is going to be the one to operate it. It seems a little bit cheesy, but it could be cool. I think it could be really cool. Or some element of this. Maybe it's just a crossbow you hold in your hand. That's the simplest one. It's a pretty big crossbow. You just operate it in your hand like normal. You kind of got that, and you got your foot to hold this in place and everything like that. There's a foot. There we go. to hold it in place so that way it doesn't bust or anything, and kind of that's the other option. That is another one from there. So it could be kind of either of these options. I always lean towards this one because it looks more thematically cool, but there's a few options. But basically it's some sort of Berserker's weapon, basically, to kind of fit the pieces together. Because remember, Guts has an insane strength gap that he needs to close. Basically, he's got to get all the way up to rival Griffith, which is just insane. So this is what's going to keep Guts and Casca busy. Right now, I'm pretty sure I want to keep them there. These guys, I didn't really think too much up for them. Kind of what I was thinking is basically going from here is that they get a letter from Farnese' father. I call him FF. Farnese' father. A letter from them saying that they have been captured by a foreign army, but it's all okay. It's all okay. And basically what you kind of learn through this is that the human remnants and nobles are, let's see, let me write this out, working against Griffith. So basically they don't trust the apostles. We'll say working against the apostles. We're not going to say they're working against Griffith because it doesn't really make sense. After everything that's happened, for someone to stand up against Griffith seems a bit absurd. I wouldn't do it because from my point of view, he's done amazing work and saved humanity from the absolute horrors that the Kushan Emperor was all about and stuff. So it's like I wouldn't stand up against him. Nobody would. But they don't trust the apostles, which that seems to match characters. Basically, we kind of see a repeat. You could almost say an echo from the the Golden Age arc. I think when Griffith is fighting for the Kingdom of Midland, and basically you see this kind of infighting and everything like that. It checks all those boxes. So the nobles are working against the apostles with the foreigners. Now the question of introducing foreigners, I didn't really know if I wanted to do that because it seems a little bit cheesy just to be like suddenly foreign army. It seems okay to do that. Miura's done that a few times with from going from the Golden Age to the whatever the age is afterwards. One where they introduce this whole Catholic Church hierarchy, where it just suddenly becomes, by the way, there it is, and everything. So what the foreigners are going to do is essentially they're a foreign army who. Now the question is, there's a few options for it. They either have to be a apostle human combo, or they have to be humans plus something else, let's say giants or something, or human plus weapon. The weapon, and by weapon I mean the kryptonite for the apostles. You've got to have something to fight the apostles. There's just no way humans can actually stand up against the apostles with any an actuality like that. The point we're at, basically, Griffith's 4 generals could defeat an entire army of like 100,000 men. Easy peasy. It would just take time. But they're in no danger of getting hit. It's kind of like, imagine how many medieval peasants would it take to fight on a cruise ship. It just doesn't matter how many you have. Eventually the cruise ship, they can refuel, they have enough weapons stock for presumably, let's say, a lot. And so there's no way those medieval peasants are actually going to be able to take on the cruise ship. So there's just no numbers. So you have to have some explanation for it. The one I was honestly leaning towards was kind of the weapon. There is an element where we see gunpowder getting introduced a lot more, especially with Rickert, and that's where we're gonna circle back on him in just a second. But basically, Rickert is going to be responsible for introducing guns and gunpowder into the Berserk world, essentially this land. So we see gunpowder kind of going through a whole lot. So maybe that's what they've got. They're just using gunpowder and cannons more effectively, because and then that kind of adds an equalizer effect of sorts. So it means that it would kind of keep it so remember, the stakes keep having to get higher and higher and higher. You can't have the enemies, basically, the Griffith's generals are all the way, kind of up here. The GG, Griffith's generals. And if all the humans are right here, this fight basically is going to be so boring because we know who's going to win. The power difference and just everything is going to be crazy. But let's say the humans with gunpowder, let's put them with here. There we go, gunpowder. Put that here. Now we're talking. It seems to be a little bit more of a fair fight, at least in terms of, you could say that the generals are still really strong and really powerful, but at least there's something that the humans can actually do. So we've got this aspect. The giants is one. I just throw that out there just because I thought of it. It's an example of a humanoid monster, and so that could be an option for it. You could also do, just in terms of, I'm trying to think of stuff that hasn't already been done. Again, that matches all these, because you don't want to violate this. Otherwise, it just becomes your own personal fan fiction. It no longer becomes Berserk related. So the humans, I'm kind of leaning towards some aspect of gunpowder. The only thing is that may kind of take away from Rickert. So basically, we're going to call it a level 1 weapon, gunpowder, or level 1 gun, and Rickert is going to introduce level 2 guns, or something like that. So that kind of, Rickert can still play the same role, largely, so he can still introduce this next level of technology, because he seems to have it, to these people, but that kind of gives them the option. So, anyway, this is the foreign army. We're going to call them the foreign army. That's all we're going to call them as. I don't really imagine, what I'm imagining is not quite foreigners in terms of, like, all the way around the world. It's more like the next continent over. So if you can imagine something where the apostles have been destroying and eating everyone kind of in the land, the area. So let's say this is the whole of Midland and everyone around it. Falconia is here. And everyone around here, if they're not in Falconia, is getting eaten by the apostles. Or killed. And then this foreign army comes from here. So it's basically, you can think of the example would be, they would come from South America if you're from America, essentially. So it's basically, it's far enough away, so it's not quite Mexico, it's not Central America, it's not the Caribbean, it's not Canada, Alaska, Greenland, or something like that. It's kind of, let's say like Chile or Argentina, kind of one of those places where it's kind of farther away in the southern area of South America. Excuse me. So, this is kind of the foreign army, and basically they are teamed up. They are inviting with these. So these guys basically go to help their father. Again, this can get a little bit fungible. I mean, she didn't really leave on good terms with the father, from what I remember. But let's say he says, "Hey, there's a foreign army that's looking to topple Griffith." That's a good reason to go. That's a good reason to go. So we're going to go meet with him and just see what's going on. Plus, it's her father. Plus, they have some new weapons. They're going to try and learn some new stuff. So that's what they're trying to do, basically. Let me try and separate this out a little bit there. So that way you can see these are the two different sides. So they go to meet, to see what's up. So that's basically what they're doing. So they're going to be traveling. So again, we've got a few options here from A to B. So they're going to be traveling there. They're going to be waylaid by apostles and kind of fighting with that. Their end is probably going to be pretty quick until it, because it seems kind of boring just to kind of have a bunch of people traveling and a bunch of people waylaid by people who waylay people while they travel. That just seems really, really quite boring. So, and we'll come back to these guys in a second. So, meanwhile, we got Griffith and Charlotte. So, what I was really trying to figure out, and this... let me see, do I want to go into that? Yeah, I have Griffith's grand vision and a plan. I'm pretty sure I've got that down, which is honestly probably the hardest part for this one, because kind of there's the escalation question that I've run into a few times with my own stories, but that each comic and story and manga author generally runs into the escalation question. This is the same thing with Dragon Ball Z. You know, it's strongest person in your town, and then city, and then country, and then continent, and then world, and then let's see, solar system, and then galaxy. I don't know if those are the same thing or not. And then basically this is how your escalation works. And eventually you run into the place where Dragon Ball, the movies have at least gotten to, where you have Super Saiyan, I don't actually know how to spell Saiyan, God, and then like 2, I think they may be on. And it's just like, what? What's going on here? This seems a bit ridiculous. But that's where we're at, basically, with Dragon Ball Z. So this is the question. What is the vision? So Griffith's vision in the past has been he wants his own kingdom. So he wants his own, let's see. And Miura does such a good job world building and making this seem like such a far off, fantastical view, because it's one of those things where it's like in One Piece, for example, you know, if Luffy wanted his own kingdom, he's got it. Like, he had that after the Alabasta saga, basically, versus Crocodile. He essentially had his own kingdom from there. He just didn't want it, so he moved on. And so what you have is this this is kind of the to use a mercantile example. Basically, for the comic, you kind of set the scarcity for the thing, everything from there. So if you really, really want something, you're going to be the one that tells the audience how far-fetched or how crazy it is. So he's done really good showing that this idea of getting your own kingdom is just, oops, move my light back. It's insanely far-fetched and insanely hard to actually achieve. So this comes to this question, what does Griffith want? He's got his own kingdom. So basically what we've got is we've got a check mark. So this is kind of the question that we're all asking, that we, of course, as we're writing the story, we're going to have to answer what's next. So what I have, let me see, what's next? Again, you have this escalation problem. Griffith is basically a god. He's one of the God Hand, or arguably greater than the God Hand. I would say probably greater, just because he seems to be a lot smarter than them. He seems to be kind of a breed on a whole different level of creature for it. So what is Griffith's aim? I think what it is, and let me see, I'm trying to think. Actually, yeah, no, I'll take it step by step because I don't want to spoil it. Because I want to kind of build towards it and kind of prove my, as we advance through the story, it's going to be my argument. So I may end up getting this in the next video for it. But essentially, and it's because I want to kind of keep you guys in the dark and kind of go through it and kind of slowly build this mystery of what's the plan, what's going on. So basically, Griffith is going to kidnap a child. Why was that? This child is possessed. So let's see. Child is possessed by something, and Griffith is going to take him and try and heal him. He's going to try and heal him. So good guy. I say kidnap because I'm spoiling a little bit. But Griffith is going to try and heal him from this. Basically, what you have is that over time, and this is over a little bit of time, Griffith becomes more distant and more isolated. So what this means is because he's kind of focused on saving the child as far as the official story goes. On the child. The child, as Werner Herzog would say. More distant and focused on the child, and then basically this leaves Charlotte trying to hold it all together. Let's see. And basically what we're going to see is we're having this idea of the utopia, and it's kind of up here, and eventually we're going to start seeing this. And this is the question. This is kind of like the median level. This is usually how utopias at least aim. Usually it's more like just a flat line, but this is what they're aiming for. So where we are at is kind of up here at the top. of this utopia track. Now, I think there is a way you could make it so... No, I don't think you actually could. I was going to say that I think there's a way you could make it so where Falconia is actually utopia, but then it really gets into this crazy thing of what if God creates this wonderful world, God being Griffith in this case, but he's done evil things, but he no longer does evil things, and I just don't think that makes sense for the story. I don't think that Griffith is this type of person that's ever going to be satisfied with just this. You know, he's going to be going for this, and then he's going to be going for this. There's no way he's going to be satisfied for this. You know, he wants his own kingdom. And what's going to happen is I'm going to show is basically there's a problem with the kingdom he has. So what he's going to do is he's going to try and create a new kingdom. And you might wonder, why or what does that look like? And we will get to that. I'm running out of space and time here, so I'll probably have to go into that into another video. But essentially, so Griffith's going to be focused on the child and trying to figure this out. And this gets a little bit leery because I don't think you can have it so that he's studying or trying to figure stuff out, because I think it definitely ruins, again, are we lore and character accurate? Griffith is basically a god at this point. So we're going to do lowercase g because he's not an uppercase g. Lowercase god. So you can't have it so where he's struggling to learn or struggling to know something. And that's where it kind of gets an issue. So it's all of this is going to have to be told from Charlotte's point of view. So she doesn't really know what's going on. All she knows is that Griffith is becoming more distant. And ever since this child arrived, he's getting more distant. Now, the reason why is because he wants to, again, there's a problem. He shares a body with the Moonchild. Let's see. The Moonchild being Griffith and Casca's kid, who then his body was used for the weird cocoon egg rebirth thing for Griffith. So basically we have this whole thing. But he shares a body, so it's not perfect. There's a big problem. He needs to get rid of the Moonchild. Because there's the potential we could go with this story again. We can kind of go a few different ways because this is going to be our telling of the events. We could say that eventually the Moonchild's going to take over Griffith and kill Griffith. Maybe when the Moonchild grows up, eventually he'll become stronger and he'll take over Griffith. So Griffith has to get rid of the Moonchild, or else all the power that he has will be shared. And because it is a less than perfect situation, which means Griffith is not going to accept it. Because again, that seems to check all these. Checks all the boxes. Of course, he's not going to be happy with anything like that. So basically what he's trying to do is and the reason why he's focused on the child is because the child is possessed. So he wants to study. Basically, he's going to experiment on the kid and learn how to, how possession works, basically. Or perhaps he's going to try and get the whatever's possessing the child to possess him and possibly then give him some way. He's going to use, and I'm not quite sure, I'm a little bit vague on this just because I don't know. I think this is one where it just, you really have to be careful. You really have to be careful on the lore and character aspects. How powerful is Griffith? That's the question. How powerful is he? Again, because if he's, astronomically off the charts, all the way up here, then having a lack of knowledge in anything is going to be a problem. So if Griffith is here and like everyone else is way down, this should honestly be higher, then this is going to be a huge problem. So he can't have a lack of knowledge up here. So basically maybe what he's trying to do is he's trying to... maybe the Moonchild is just that big. Again, remember, we're having to say this is Griffith's level of knowledge. Let's give it a value of 1. And then let's say everything that humans know is like a negative 20 or something like that. So then what we can do is instead of going down, worrying about down, we can build up. So the, let's say the Moonchild equals a positive 20 just because he's that mysterious. He's that bizarre. We've never seen anything like this in the world, which makes sense. So, okay, so maybe now it's not that he doesn't know stuff, it's just that this situation is so crazy, so wild, so unique that that's what he's trying to figure out. And so that could be an option. That's a good option. I kind of like that one. So let's go with that. We'll stick with that one for right now. And so then we've got this. So he shares a body with the Moonchild, and he doesn't want to. He's got to figure out a plan to get rid of it. And yeah, so I think I'm definitely going to have to split this into at least 2 parts, maybe more. So what I'll end on is basically Griffith is kind of growing more distance. There's hostility between the nobles. We'll say nobles / humans versus the apostles. Because again, there's some weird uneasy peace going on, and luckily the other reason why I wanted to use a foreign army is I want there to be another big battle, and all the foreign armies are on Griffith's side, so you can't have another Empire of Kashan. So there's got to be something else going on. So this is kind of the remnants of the humans. The reason why it's going to be slightly different is I like using the giants as kind of like, maybe they're considered quasi-humans for the first time in their life, and the humans are like, yep, you guys are one of us, thumbs up. There we go. There's my thumbs up. Thumbs up. You guys are one of us. Mainly because you're bigger and stronger and can help us fight. So maybe that's a way that we can kind of even the playing field with the giants. And maybe it's another thing where maybe they have giant guns. That seems really cool. Would be a really cool thing to do. So the nobles, humans, strife gets a bit more. Maybe there's a famine or something like that in Falconia. So basically what we see is we start seeing the utopias start to slip a little bit, especially as Griffith stops caring. Now, why does this utopia fail? It doesn't fail because Griffith wants it to. It's because he allows it. Because again, he's a god. So anytime you're going to have a failure on his end, you have to have an explanation for it because he's just that powerful. It'd be like if Guts lost to an average swordsman. You have to have an explanation for why he's doing this because he's focused on other things and he doesn't care. Like, that's the other thing. He's a psycho. He's a psycho evil god. He does not care. And then, what you're going to see from Charlotte's point of view is she's going to go visit Griffith, basically, and just see how he's doing. See how he's doing. Maybe kind of ask him some questions. Ask for his help. And it turns out that they talk, and then Griffith falls into a coma. And that's where we're going to end it so far. For right now. We're going to end it for right now today and kind of go on to the next video and cover everything from there. So I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.